Hello and welcome to the Munro Method Clancast. I am Jason Munro. This is episode 91. Today, we are going to talk about the all or nothing mindset. I delivered a little snippet of a talk to my members on Wednesday about this. I go live every second Wednesday midday just to have a chat and a blather about stuff that's come up in the group during that week. But we were talking about the all or nothing mindset. The wild thing about the all or nothing mindset is that it is entirely created by us. And it's so funny because a lot of the people I work with run into it. I need to cough and I can't mute my mic. Oh, wait a minute, I can pause this. There we go. A lot of the people I work with run into this. And when it happens, we have a chat about it. So like, I am very, what's the word? I don't know what word to use. Oh, I make it very clear. So when I do people's mini check-ins, set up their nutrition, give them their nutrition plan and their goals, and I make it, and I do it. Imagine me talking to you like this on video, looking through your couple of screenshots from your couple of days of tracking that I just give me a general sense of how you eat, going through your template, reading the things that you've said. And then I'm kind of going through all, reading it, giving some early advice, setting up their goals, and explaining very clearly that I have set your, here's what your calorie burn is. I have set your fat loss calories here, and I have given you this calorie range because this calorie range is going to help you lose somewhere around a pound a week. Now, if you can stick to that calorie range, great. If you can come in below it, even better. If you're above it, that's absolutely fine. It just means that things will move a little bit slower. And I try to make it very clear that there's no right or wrong way to do things. It's and there's no best way to do things. It's basically, what can a person realistically manage? And then I'll go on to talk about their nutrition goals and say, right, here is your minimum protein goal. It's not a set figure. It's not a goal to reach every single day. It's, here is the minimum amount of protein that your body needs whilst you're in a calorie deficit, because we want to protect your muscles and all these things. Do your best with it. In this first week, I don't expect you to be reaching this, although it will depend, because if I look at their tracking and they're already having like 80 grams of protein a day and have set their goal to 70 or 90, it's like, yeah, you're practically there. That's not a problem. And I've also set you a minimum fiber goal of 20 grams a day. Just to explain that, so a healthy range of fiber in adults is considered to be 30 to 50 grams a day. Now, I used to set the goals to 30 thinking that, well, if that's a healthy range, I need to set everybody to this. And do you know what I realized? Most adults do not eat any fruits and vegetables each day. And that's not just a throwaway statement, that's a fact. Like, most adults are not eating a single piece of fruit or a single vegetable each day. I look at people's tracking when they come to work with me. Their fiber is down at 3 grams, 4 grams, 5 grams a day. For context, 15 grams plus is the recommended level for 2 to 5-year-old children. So I work with a lot of adults who just do not eat any fruit and vegetables. And then it's a very difficult conversation to then have, because you need to get them to buy into it. I mean, it's not new information that you need to eat fruit and vegetables so that you don't die, so that you don't live a horrible life, so you don't have a terrible quality of life, so that you are not an exceptionally unhealthy person, so that you can go to the toilet, so that you have a healthy digestive system, so that you don't increase your risk of numerous chronic health conditions. Like, everybody knows, the government beat us over the head with it all the time. You need to have, is it up to 7 now? 7 portions of fruit and vegetables per day, right? It's not new information that if you want to be a healthy human being, fruits and vegetables have to be a part of your diet. So when people come to work with me, they already know this. Everybody knows this. It's not new information. So I have to sell it to them in a different way, and I have to get them to buy into it in a different way, which is, it's very much, look, I know you want to lose weight, but I want to help you lose weight for life. And I know for a fact that if you do not eat fruits and vegetables and improve the quality of your diet, reduce your hunger levels, boost your health, boost your energy, improve your sleep, improve fucking countless different things, um, and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. The reason that you're overweight, part of the reason is that you don't eat fruit and vegetables. In place of the fruit and vegetables that you should be eating, you put much higher calorie foods that are less filling, which means you need to eat more of them. It's part of the reason you have such a high calorie diet that has led you to gain weight. So, tying in with kind of last week's episode where I spoke about fad diets and why they don't work, and because they don't address the root cause of the problem, a lack of fruit and vegetables in the diet could be responsible for a large portion of someone's additional weight that they're carrying. So it's very important for me to have that conversation with them and say, look, you are not going to get to your goal. In fact, sorry, you might get to your goal of 9 stone, 10 stone, whatever it is. However, you will not be able to stay there. Not easily. You will have to work for it. You will probably have to continue tracking. You will probably have to monitor a lot of what you eat to make sure the calories don't go high, because if you are determined not to eat fruits and or vegetables, then that's not going to allow you to maintain your weight long term. Anyway, the point of that was 30 to 50 grams a day is considered a healthy range of fiber in adults, but that's for people on a weight maintenance diet. I am putting people into a calorie deficit. 30 to 50 grams is not only super unrealistic for the majority of people I work with because they're miles away from that, it's also unrealistic because if someone has to go to 12, 13, 14, 1500 calories, 30 to 50 grams a day, even like a minimum of 30, you've got to eat a lot of fruit and veg, and that doesn't leave much room for anything else. So I set a minimum fiber goal of 20 grams a day. Now, the reason that I am at peace with that and have been for the last year since I changed it is that health is subjective. So, yes, 30 to 50 grams a day might be considered the healthy range. However, if someone's having 5, 6, 7, 8 grams a day, 20 grams is over a 100% improvement on what they're doing. So I am more about the healthier approach. Yes, optimal is fine. Great. We know what the numbers are for optimal. Awesome. But if I can get someone to go from having 5, 6, 7, 8 grams of fiber a day, which has come from like some pasta and a couple of slices of bread and no fruits and vegetables, if I can get them up to 17, 18, 19, 20 plus, if we're lucky, that's a huge improvement. And I'm absolutely fine with that because it's all about improvement. So I set a minimum, because I still need to have a minimum, because people still need to be taking care of themselves and protecting themselves and looking after their health. Plus, it's good because they're also working with a nutritionist, so there's that bit of accountability there as well. So you're kind of, when people are left to their own devices, they will try and cheat the system, right? Once somebody discovers that, well, if all I need to do is eat less calories than I burn, I'll just calculate how many calories I burn, and then I'll set a number lower than that, and I'll just eat whatever I want. And yes, that does work if people can stick to the calories. But that's the difference between healthy weight loss and unhealthy weight loss, which would be quite a good topic for another episode. Anyway, pardon me. Anyway, back to the all or nothing mindset. So, even though I do check-ins and starting stats and all these things, and I make it very clear that, look, especially through this first week and the few weeks that come after, all we're doing is figuring things out. You're figuring it out as you go. I do not want you to come back here in 7 days' time and say, I am eating exactly 80 grams of protein and exactly 20 grams of fiber every day. I mean, it will be great if you've made a big improvement. Awesome. But there's no pressure. I'm not going to give you a row. You're not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to give you a hard time. If it was 6 months down the line and you were pissing about with it, then it'd be like, look, come on, you've been here long enough by now to know that that's not a great way to approach your diet. But in this first week of tracking, because we break things up, initially in the beginning, there's a lot of hand holding in the beginning, then we scale up to the fortnightly check-ins. But throughout this first month or two, it's very relaxed, right? All I want to see is that you're getting better. That's all. And if that means a couple of grams a week because you've added some more fruit or an extra vegetable portion, brilliant. Yes, there are optimal numbers for things. There are optimal ways of doing things. But depending where you're coming from, someone might only be like 5% away from optimal. Most people I work with are 50, 60, 70% away from optimal. You can't ask them to make a 70% improvement within 7 days. Even if it's just 5% every time they check in, as long as they're getting better and better, that's all that matters. But the point is, even though I constantly reinforce that idea with people I work with, they will still go away and make up their own rules. And then they will hold themselves to those rules. And it's so fucking annoying. There are people who will check in, they'll do check-ins, like maybe, let's say they check in for 6 weeks in a row, right? 3 check-ins, 3 fortnightly check-ins over 6 weeks. And then they don't check in. And then they don't check in again, and then they don't check in again. And then eventually they come back and it's a cry for help because they've not checked in for 6 weeks. And when I find out why, it's because when they were due to do their next check-in, they didn't think their whatever looked good enough. So they didn't want to check in with it. And they wanted to wait until they were able to show me something that they thought looked good enough. And it never happened. It took 8 weeks for it to happen. And that was entirely made up by them. I say nowhere in anything that I do, anything I say, anywhere within the Munro Method that things have to look a certain way, that this version of a check-in is a good check-in. I constantly say to people, look, every single check-in is a good check-in, regardless of how you feel about it. If it's all sunshine and rainbows and you're doing everything right and the scales are coming down, that's a great check-in because I get to look at that, review it, assess it, see if any changes need made, congratulate you on how well you're doing, whatever, right? That's a good check-in. If things are going to shit, it's still a great check-in because it's then an opportunity for me to dive in and help you and say, right, here's what we're going to do with this part. Here's how we're going to improve this part. I'm going to give you just 2 goals to work on over the next week. I want you to work on that, and I want you to work on that. Then I want you to come back and check in. Don't worry about the rest of the stuff. Let's just scale it back a bit and focus on these 2 things and take it from there. Every single check-in is a good check-in in my eyes. But at the other end, at the client end, at the member end, they just make up these fucking ridiculous parameters. Like, oh, I can't, I've only tracked for 12 days out of the last 14. I can't show that as a check-in, so I'm just going to skip that. Entirely self-created. And this is where this all or nothing thinking comes from. It's when people create a version of something and then don't live up to that version. And if they don't live up to that version, it's, well, what's the fucking point? Like tracking, for example, like they create this idea that I must track every single day without fail, no breaks, no missing anything, no nothing. And then they have a Saturday where they plan a family day out. They tracked their breakfast, but they were going out for lunch, going out for dinner. And then when they went and looked on a Sunday, they couldn't see anything. They couldn't remember everything they had. And then they'll disappear for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Instead of just tracking the next day and then checking in and saying, oh, I was out for a family day out that Saturday. Awesome. Great. I hope you had a great time. Oh, look how much weight you've still lost because you still did everything the other 13 days. But instead, because they've there's a proper term for this that I'm not using. I don't know. They've set a standard and they've not met, unrealistic expectations. That's what it is. They've created unrealistic expectations and placed them on themselves. And when they, the clue's in the name, right? Unrealistic. When they don't live up to those unrealistic expectations, well, what's the point? I've already made a mess of it. Why bother continuing? But the all or nothing mindset is something that is entirely self-created. And there is no easy way to overcoming it. I mean, it's easier for me because I'm checking in with people so I can talk about it and bring it up and we can kind of continue to reinforce it. For a person just to reinforce it in themselves, it's very difficult. But I think the best approach to come at all or nothing thinking is to understand that flexibility will beat rigidity every single time. You know, if you are if you're not a member and you're just someone listening to this podcast, maybe you've tried to track calories in the past, and maybe you've just done what most people do and randomly picked 1,200 calories out of the sky. And you set that number in NutriCheck or MyFitnessPal or whatever, and you've tried to stick to it. And you probably did great Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday, and then Friday, not so great. Saturday, definitely not. Sunday, you've just given up tracking. And then that's it. You don't get back to it for a few weeks again, because what's the point? And it's because it's this whole, well, you create the idea that I'm going to hit this number of 1,200 every day. Monday, you do it, you feel great. Tuesday, you do it, you feel great. Wednesday, Thursday, you feel great. Friday, you do it, but it's Friday night. So you have that extra thing that you didn't plan for. And now it's not 1,200, it's 1,400. And that's when people lose their shit. And it's because you didn't account for weekends. You didn't say, well, okay, Monday to Thursday, 1,200 might be realistic, but I still want to lose weight at the weekends, but I still want to be able to chill out and eat different things and get takeaways or have drinks. So let's aim for 15 or 1,600 at the weekends. That's flexibility. Or, yeah, 1,200 then, 1,600 at the weekends, on average across a week. All great. Or even working to a calorie range, which is what I do inside the Munro Method. Yes, we set fat loss calories because we need to set a number in an app, but we work to a range 100 either side of that. It's just really to help people have flexibility. Like, I know I've got something coming up on Saturday night. My range is 14 to 1,600 calories. So what I'll do is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'll work to 1,400. That helps me build a nice big cushion so that Saturday can be 2,000 calories. Sunday can come back down to 500. And by the time I add all of those up and divide by 7, I'm within my calorie range. I've still lost a pound and a bit this week. Everything's tickety-boo. So the all or nothing mindset is completely and entirely self-inflicted by people, mostly by people who struggle with perfectionism. Like, if I can't do it this way, I don't want to do it at all. But yeah, it's not an easy thing to work on. You can't just go from being like that to not being like that. But the pathway to resolving that, I believe, is just working on flexibility, understanding that not everything will go to plan. And when something doesn't go to plan, it doesn't mean the next 6 weeks don't have to go to plan. The ability to just get right back to normal the next day. And again, this is why it's great having a coach, because if I work with someone who I know experiences that mindset or thinks in that way, it will be like, maybe we'll do a check-in where they did disappear for a while, and I'll be like, look, here's what you were doing before. You've just missed out on 4 weeks of that. You could have been 5 pounds closer to your goal. But because you did one thing on that Saturday, you then decided that you wanted to deprive yourself of 4 weeks of progress just because you went out for a drink on a Saturday night. And then I'll have like a big chat like I've done in this podcast with them and say, look, this is this and this is that. And next time, here's what I want you to do. The next time you have a moment like this, I want you to get right back to normal the next day. And then you're going to carry on. And then we're going to have a check-in. And I'm going to look at it and say, look at this now. Yes, you had that thing on Saturday night, but you got back to normal. Over the last 2 weeks, you're still 2 pounds down. And that the reason you're still 2 pounds down is because you chose to continue after that Saturday. The last time, you chose to just fuck everything off and give up. And you deprived yourself of 4 weeks of progress because of just something that you chose to do, a decision that you made based on a thought that you had. Now, you've got that evidence to show you that if I just get right back to normal the next day, instead of thinking I've ruined it or wasted it or whatever, look what I can achieve. One day does not ruin anything unless I allow it to. That's what it comes down to, right? That takeaway doesn't ruin anything about your diet unless you decide to let it. Takeaways don't ruin diets, by the way. It's a self-created thought. So the all or nothing mindset, it's steeped in perfectionism. And something I tell everyone I work with is, if you want to benefit most from the word perfect, remove it from your vocabulary. Perfection is an illusion, especially in nutrition and exercise. There is no such thing as perfect when it comes to exercise, when it comes to diet, when it comes to your nutrition, when it comes to weight, when it comes to the methods, the ways that you lose weight. Yes, there are absolutely better ways of doing things and worse ways of doing things, but it is a very, very wide and long scale. Um, there is no, if the perfect diet existed, everyone would be following it and nothing else would be out there. Everybody's weight would be fine. Everybody would be eating the same things, doing the same things, and it would all be sunshine and rainbows. It is not like that, sadly. And the word perfection, or even thinking about like, even in check-ins, like I don't use 100%. I only go up to like 99% when we're doing scales on check-ins and things like accuracy and stuff. Um, and I don't use the word perfect anywhere ever. It is all about balance, and some things are better, some things aren't, but there's no perfection. And that's mainly to try and help the people who suffer with that all or nothing thinking, that black and white thinking, where it's, well, and one last thing as well, just that's popped into my head before we wrap up. If you are someone who's thinking about losing weight, don't fall into this trap. Ooh, fuck it, I'll say it because I'm not doing that for a few episodes yet. Don't fall into the trap of, and if you are someone that suffers from all or nothing thinking, you will be, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this episode. Don't fall into the trap of tying exercise to your weight. So what I mean by that is, many people, whenever you're listening, like there are people who listen to this at the weekends, are like, right, that's it, I feel motivated. Diet starts Monday, okay? Very standard, very typical. However, they will say, that's it, I'm going on a diet. And this is where they really fuck things up, and they'll go, and I'm going back to the gym, or I'm going back to my classes, or I'm reactivating my membership at the gym, or whatever it is. And that's it. Ruined. Absolutely ruined before you've even started, because you've tied those two things together. Number one, exercise is not for your weight. Exercise is for your health, your physical health, your mental health, your strength, your fitness, your cardiovascular health. It is not for your weight. And I'll explain that more in a few episodes' time. Your diet is for your weight. Okay. You exercise has a minor effect on your weight. Diet has 95% of the effect on your weight. Now, the reason that it's important not to tie these two things together, number one, because exercise isn't for your weight, but number two, when you tie those two things together, they are now linked to one another. So if you are someone who suffers with all or nothing thinking, you've tied diet and exercise together as one and the same. What happens the first day you eat that unplanned thing? And your all or nothing thinking kicks in, and you go, well, I've already had chocolate, so I might as well not go to the gym. Or I've already had a takeaway, so I'm not going to my class tomorrow. And it works in the other direction. You don't get up at 6:30 to go to that spin class that you booked. So you go, well, fuck it, I didn't make that today, so I'm just going to eat like this today. Don't make the mistake of linking exercise and diet together, ever, 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 ever. If you're going to take care of your diet, do it to take care of your nutritional health. Do it to look after your weight. Do it for whatever reason. If you're going to exercise, do it for the reasons that people exercise. Weight isn't one of them. It shouldn't be one of them. It is one of them because that's what many people exercise for. But you can exercise and gain weight at the same time. And if you can do something while gaining weight, then it's not for your weight, is it? Anyway, enough from me. Yeah, until next time.